Welcome to this Introduction to Microsoft Excel tutorial. I'm just going to provide a basic introduction into working with Excel, working in the work pane, different workflow considerations, entering in data, manipulating data, and then how to present data in a meaningful, useful and compelling manner. So to start off with, this is our Excel work pane. Excel work pane is principally comprised of our worksheet, each of these tabs here representing their own sheet. We can enter in data into that worksheet by just typing it like that. We can also copy data between cells. So we can right click, we can say copy. We can just right click and we can paste it normally. We can right click and we can do this wonderful thing called paste special, where we can just paste the values, the formatting, any comments, any validation. We can do a lot of powerful things there. So let's delete this data. Also important to remember is that each of these cells represents the intersect of both a column and a row. So if we want to reference any other cell, we just tell it the column we want to reference and the row we want to reference, and that'll reference that cell. The other main part of our Excel window is our ribbon menu items over here, and this is where we access a lot of Excel's functionality. It's in these ribbon menu items, and they're grouped across functional areas. Home contains most of the formatting, data obviously most of the data manipulation, tools and functions, and it's just a process of learning, exploring and figuring out what is where. So let's dive into a more practical example using the percent change and no change models we learnt in class. We're going to start by entering in our data. We want column A to be quarter, we want column B to be our Y values. Let's make it look nice by selecting it. We want it to be centered. We want it to be centered. We'd like it to be bold. And that looks pretty good. So let's enter in our data quickly. Got quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, but we don't want to be selecting all of those, so we can select it, hover over this little black square in the bottom right hand corner, just drag down, it will autofill to 8 quarters. And then we're going to enter in our Y data. Like so. .08 for quarter 6, 6.05 for quarter 7, and then finally 6.42 for quarter 8. Now that we've got our data, we're going to start working with it and implementing our no change forecast model. So let's just start by typing in our no change title over here. Then we're going to start putting in the data. There's two ways we could do this. We can either just copy the data and then paste it, but we don't really like that. That's unflexible, and if we want to change these numbers over here, these ones won't change. So we're going to use formulas. Now formulas is where pretty much all of the core functionality and usefulness in Excel comes in. A well-designed spreadsheet makes almost exclusive use of formulas rather than just hard coding numbers, because this allows us to change our input variables or input data, and then pretty much the rest of the spreadsheet should change in response to that. So we can do things like compare different Y values and see the changes in no change, or when we eventually do percent change. So let's do that by just implementing the formula. All formulas are preceded by equal sign, and then we click on the cell that we wanted to reference. And we click enter, and then we're just going to drag that all the way down. Okay, let's extend our knowledge of formulas and implementing the slightly more complicated percent change model. So we're just going to type in our heading percent change over here. We want to be able to change our percentage change value to sort of compare different values. So we're going to want a little more space up top here. We're just going to insert a row. We're going to start off with, we want 3%. So we're going to have that as our percent change value to begin with. We don't want that bolded. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to implement a formula that's equal sign that says 1 plus this percent change value. We don't want this value, we want this cell to be fixed, so we're going to press F4 and it puts these dollar signs in front of it, and we'll see when we copy down that formula that won't change. And then we want to times that by the Y value for the preceding period, and we can see then as we copy it down, it says 3% over the preceding Y value gives us our percent change forecast. Okay, let's take this a little bit further by analysing the mean absolute deviation between our percent change forecast and our actual Y value. So to do that, we need to get our raw residuals, and we're just going to look at the difference between the actual value and our forecast value, and we're going to do that for each of the quarters. But now, to do the mean absolute deviation, we need the absolute value of these residuals. So we're going to calculate the absolute value of our residuals, and then we're going to use the formula equals abs of this value over here. You might also be wondering, where is this guy getting these functions from, and how do I learn what functions are out there? Well, if you're ever stuck and you need to sort of solve something, but you don't know quite how to, or you don't know what functions are out there, you can always just click on a cell, click on this little FX here, and you'll get this wonderful box here telling you which functions are out there, and it sorts it by just functional areas. So we can look at statistics, we can look at average, we can look at math and trig, and it'll provide a lot of really helpful functions. Moving back to our MAD calculation, in order to do that we need to calculate the sum of our residual values. In order to do that, we're going to use the sum formula. I'm just going to highlight our absolute values over there, and then to get MAD, we're going to say this value over here divided by n, and to do that we're just going to use the count formula to make it easy for ourselves. So we also have another good tool at our disposal. We have our mean square error, and to calculate that we need to calculate the sum of squares. So we're going to say, just show that we want to calculate the sum of squares of our residual values. How do we calculate that? Well, we could calculate it by hand using normal math operators, or we could check to see if we have a function that can do it for us. So let's click this little FX over here, math and trig, go down, go down, go down, go down, go down, and then, oh great, we have this sum of squares. It gives a little description and shows us what our input parameters are. So I'm going to click OK. Got a wonderful wizard over here that allows us to select our input values, and when we click enter and OK, and it does it all for us. Isn't that great? And then to calculate the mean square error, we just say this value over here divided by our total number of time periods, n, and then we get our mean squared value of our forecast. So we've got our wonderful data output here, but that doesn't mean much unless we can tell the world, we can tell people, we can display it in a meaningful manner. So one of the ways we can do that is we can just print it out and hand it in. Here we can see what a print preview of that would look like, and we'd probably need to add some more grid lines just to bring out the data in a more meaningful manner. Or we could also make a chart. So to make a chart, we'd highlight B3 to D11, click the insert tab on the ribbon, line, click our chart. I mean, off the bat that doesn't look great, but we're going to make some changes to make it look better. Select our axis title, format axis. We want our minimum to be fixed at our minimum value, which is about 5. Our maximum value is about 7. Our major unit, we don't want it so big, we want it to be about around 0.2. On our minor unit, fixed at around 0.1. So you can see that looks a lot better. You can see data goes up by period, and we can see the difference between the percent change and the no change forecasts of it. This is looking pretty good, but in order for someone to be able to look at this and actually know what's going on, we need to add some axes labels and some data labels over here. So let's first add the labels to our series data. So we're going to click on our main menu, right click, select data, you can see it shows the different series of data over here. So series 1, we can see that that's B3 down to B11, so we know that that's our Y value. So if we just click edit over here, we can see our series name, and then we just make it Y. We click OK. Series 2, you can see that series 2 is C3 to C11, and we know that that's going to be percent change. So click OK. Series 3, edit D3, so that's percentage change over there. There we go. So we've got our Y, our no change, and our percentage change, and you can see now Excel tells us what's what. Okay, now we still need some axis titles. So we click on our chart, we click on layout tab, formatting tab over here, axis titles, primary vertical to do the y-axis. Let's say we want a rotated axis title, and we can just say this is actual and forecast value, and then we want a horizontal, so horizontal title, and then title below axis. Then we can just say that this is quarter, and then finally we want a chart title, we want it up top there, and we can say that this is forecasts, or we can say it, alright, so it looks good, and now we can see exactly what's happening with our data.